Well, hey, everybody. How are you? Thanks for popping in. This is our Nurses Roundtable, and we have some of the sales team on. Woohoo, sales team! And we have some from CX. The ops team is here. Claims is here. And as we head into the fall, it's interesting because fall from surprisingly, but October, Halloween's a really hard month for some of our patients who are really working hard to, drive behavior change so that they can be healthier. They're trying to cut out sweets and eat healthier and drink more water. And then Halloween comes around, it can blow them all off. And then you got Thanksgiving after that. And then we got Christmas. It's a hard quarter for those who are really trying to carve out some really good habits. So we just wanted to share some of our favorite tips, our hacks for healthy living. No tricks, pure treats, all of our, well, maybe some healthy tricks, some tricks, if you will, for living healthy. And I know nurses, we talk about this all the time, but I'd love if we can just go around the horn and share some of our favorite hacks for healthy living. Clint, on the sales team, do you have any fun tips you want to share? Any tricks and treats?
Tricks and treats. I'm not muted, right? Okay, good. No, I just always stay really consistent with my workout and 4 or 5 times a week, and I drink a ton of water. It's not to say I don't eat things that aren't great for me, and I'm not like psycho about it, but just mindful about, if I'm going to eat the cheeseburger, I'm not going to eat the fries. Little, just
Ah,
you can still kind of, cheat a little bit, but don't go all in, right? And so
yeah.
I just do things like that. Instead, I'll get a burger and I'll get a salad, just to kind of whack it in half from a from a bad health standpoint. But no, just tons of water, stay active, keep moving. Um, work out if you can, whatever that is to you. Could be anything.
Yeah,
That's
it's
pretty much
interesting.
it.
I once worked with one of the Tony Robbins coaches I used to work with years ago, and Tony Robbins was so funny. He used to tell the story about the gal who she was trying to work out, and he in this session with her, they were talking about exercise, and she says, well, I got to go and I got to get the shoes and I have to have the right clothes. And you have to schedule time to go on the tour. She's going through all the barriers, right? He says, lady, you don't need any of that stuff. He says, you just need somebody to run behind you and yell, move.
Yeah, that's right.
just, just move.
This is true. You can't wait till it's a perfect situation to start. You just have to
And it
start.
never is. It's like
Yeah, it
having
never
kids,
is.
right? There's never a
Yeah.
good time to start having kids. You just got to start having them. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they will bless your life just like exercise. And I once had a nephrologist one time who says, being a little overweight isn't what kills people. It's not moving that kills people.
Oh yeah.
Uh, Not that we
Yeah.
want to be overweight, but yeah, exercise is so important. It's a game changer. Um, what about you, Kat? Our gearhead here, Kasha. Do you have any of your favorite tips and tricks for healthy living when you're crazy busy on the go?
My biggest thing is to keep moving, carve out time, make myself a priority. I know it wasn't as easy when my kids were small, but we still would go to the park. I still would run around with my kids when they were younger. Um, I've had a lot of injuries due to sports, so I have to keep moving or else everything locks up and I sound like the tin soldier
Oh yeah.
that needs oil. So I just keep moving. And then
Keep moving.
recognizing good aftercare in terms of like icing and just paying attention to my body mechanics. I have a lot of hardware in my back, so I make sure when I'm working on my vehicles for a long period of time that I'm wearing a back brace, just sort of making sure that, I'm doing best practices basically for my body mechanics.
Yeah, so for those of you who don't know, I don't know if anybody on our team doesn't know, but Kasha is famous in the realm of rebuilds. She builds she builds custom cars, classic cars. She builds from scratch. Uh, Really beautiful, beautiful work. I know, and she works hard uh, in her job as well. So yeah, thanks for sharing. Those are great tips. A lot of our members have back problems. And it's so important because and usually when I look in claims and I see things like anything that has to do with pain, spondylosis, or you see the degenerative disc disease or anything like that, I always worry about folks because the tendency there is to pop pain pills, or something like an NSAID, we call them, your non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs like Motrin, Aleve, these kinds of ibuprofen, which is the generic for Motrin. These kind of medications are nephrotoxic, and they can truly cause a big decline. Matter of fact, my husband, sometimes I share, he used to take 4 or 5 at a time until he found his kidney function was really low. Matter of fact, he was like in the 30s. He was in the high 30s, but it was still really low. And I was like, dude, you cannot do that. And finally, a nephrologist friend of mine says, dude, you cannot do that. And he does not touch the stuff. And his GFR is up in the 70s right now. So makes a big difference. And we're not supposed to have pain. Pain can jack up blood pressures, and it can lead people to self-medicate in a way that's really hard on their organs. So it's really important. I love that you shared that too. Okay. Anybody else have some great tips you want to shout out? Hey, Steve.
So I'm just going to kind of echo, I think, some things that Clint said, because I mean, for people that are on the go, especially, I mean, I know Clint kind of came into this when it's fourth quarter, but like from January to like August, September, we are traveling and we're on the go a lot. Yep. So I think it's just a matter of being more mindful. I mean, the great thing is during that season, I mean, from June until now, I've lost about 35 pounds. So and honestly, it's more, because you can exercise. I mean, I know what we say about exercise, and that's great, but you don't lose weight by exercising. I mean, if you eat like garbage and then exercise, you're still not going to lose weight. So, I mean, for me, it was more about making those choices. Like Clint said, you might get that sandwich, but you might get Brussels sprouts or might get asparagus or a salad or something like that on the side, and just being more mindful, and just adding other things. Like this morning, for example, I had a bowl of cereal for breakfast, but what did I do? I added, a bunch of mixed berries and fruit on top of it, so instead of adding any sugar or anything like that to it, I did that, I mean, so, I mean, I'm not, I wasn't eating like Cocoa Puffs or anything like that, but, I was eating Special K, which, I mean, honestly, Special K isn't very sweet. So, I mean, adding the berries was kind of nice because not only did I get the extra benefit of the fruit, but also it kind of sweetened it up a little bit too. So, I just think that, and really cutting out sodas and things like that was very helpful as well.
Don't drink your calories.
I try not to. I mean, every once in a while, I like to have a soda because I hate diet soda. I can't drink it. I know a lot of people like Diet Cokes and things like that, and I can't drink the stuff. It just tastes awful to me, So, and I know they say it's an acquired taste, but it's just I can't ever get used to it. So, every once in a while, I think during this last 4 or 5 months, I've probably had maybe 2 or 3 sodas the entire time. So, I mean, that's been a big change. And I kind of look at it as a treat. Like I'm going out and I'll be like, okay, I'll have a soda, not a big deal. And so I think it's more like Clint was saying about being more mindful, because I mean, it's tough for us to be out there on the road a lot. And also, I mean, when I'm not on the road, I try to eat at home instead of out, because then you can control a lot of what you eat as far as like calories and, fat and things like that. Cause you can't, I mean, you don't really know what's in it when you go to a restaurant. So it's hard to really kind of figure that stuff out. So, but when I'm on the road, it's just, like I said, being more mindful and trying to find healthier alternatives.
It's interesting too there because I have a second cousin of mine who's a nurse. She's a PhD nurse, and she has focal segmental glomerular sclerosis, FSGS, a kidney disease. And when I was with her and we were traveling, and she really had it down. She knew the limitations to help watch out for her kidneys. And when you're eating out, when you're on the go, most restaurants will cater to you. And she would tell them exactly how she wanted her meat prepared and not for the sauces, and they would do that for her. And most restaurants, obviously not like your Big Mac, whatever it is, but most restaurants will tailor cook your meals for you. It's really helpful when you're on the go, because to your point, that's difficult. One word about soda pops. You know what we use in the Coast Guard to clean brass fittings on the ship? I'm just saying, no pressure there. Or as nurses, we'll use soda pop or Pepsi to declog a G tube. Eat that up. Put a little.
Have you seen the little TikTok things that say if you want to clean mold or something like that off your bathroom thing, put in like a thing of soda and whatever, together, or it's I know.
It's interesting because the soda pop, not only does it have a lot of calories, but for people that have kidney disease, dark colored soda pops have a lot of phosphorus, which is really hard on the kidneys. So yeah, good for you. That's awesome. How about you, Jessica? What are your favorite healthy hacks?
One thing I do to remove the barrier for working out is I'll start the day by just getting dressed in my workout clothes. That way there's no I have to get ready, etc.
Yeah.
I mean, that's definitely a privilege of working from home, but that's
Right.
One thing I do.
Yeah, for me, many years ago, it was hard for me to find the time. I had the same excuse everybody else did until I looked around and everybody I saw that was ending up in nursing homes, they were all people that didn't move. And I figured, well, if I don't want to end up like that, where we are today is because of the things that we've done in the past without thinking about it. And where we're going to be 5 years from now, we're writing that story right now today. And so I did the same thing when I decided I had to create, exercise as a habit. I would go to sleep in my workout clothes, because for me, it's just a matter of getting out of bed and I just got to move. And just like I don't want to dress twice, I won't do it. So I've got to get it in the morning. And if I wait till the end of the day, so for some people, they like blowing off that energy at the end of the day. That works for them. Doesn't work for me because by then I'm tired. So, yeah, great tips. Do that first thing in the morning. Eat the frog. Yep. How about you, Nancy, if you're able to share? Or Caroline? Caroline's ready. Caroline comes to us from Puerto Rico.
Hello. I have a few that come to mind. Around the holidays, definitely I feel like plan for it, right? Like, you're going to go to maybe a Halloween party, or maybe, you're going to go to a Christmas party. So don't plan on not eating anything that's there, because I feel like that usually leads to then eating 3 plates of it. Yeah. When you end up eating it and then you're like, oh, well, I ate it, so I'm going to eat 3 plates of it. So it's more of, I know I'm going to eat, I'm going to have, candy, then go for your favorite candy and eat candy on the 31st of October, right? Just, one. Portion control. Using smaller plates, it helps because you want to fill the plate. So if you use a smaller plate, like a potluck plate, it helps. And carrying water, because a lot of times you feel like you're hungry and you're just thirsty. Great. So try water before. And then I thought of I have young kids. So for me, definitely planning workouts. I know what days I want to go, what times. My husband is aware. I know where the kids are going to be. And then it's it's happening. Like, it doesn't matter if I'm feeling it or not feeling it, it's happening. I'm going. That's when it's happening.
There was a lot
Even
of
if
planning that went into here, and Mama's getting a workout.
yeah, it doesn't matter. Like, oh, I wanted to do 3 miles. It doesn't matter. I don't feel like it. I'm gonna do one. But I did it. I got out. I went and I did it. So that definitely helps when you have kids. I feel like when you plan it, you have childcare, you talk it over. This is what's happening, and you owe it to yourself. So you have to
Yes.
show up.
You do. I think we're better moms when we take care of ourselves too. Did
That is for
anybody,
sure.
moms and dads, did anybody ever work out with your kids? I used to lift my kid when they were little. I lifted them like weights. I was much thinner back then. Did anybody ever do that? Work out with your kids?
I do for squats. I usually try to carry them and then try to squat. I'm like, okay, this adds
Bench
like
press
30
a
pounds.
kid. Yeah, squat a kid. I love it.
Unfortunately, I threw my back out when I tried to do that with my 12-year-old. So no, I'm just kidding.
No.
Just
You
kidding.
have to stop at a certain point.
Yeah.
Mine is 4 and 1.5, so I still have
You still
some
got some.
time.
You still got some there. So
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I know Lindsay has little ones at home too. Now let me see if I can count right. I think Lindsay, you have 3 little ones? 4.
4 children. We have a 15-year-old, a 12 or a 10-year-old, a 2-year-old, and a 7-month-old. So only 2 of them are really little, but yes, they keep us busy. So for me, I think trying to fit it in with the kids is just fit it in where I can at this point in my life and give myself a little grace on the days that I can't do it.
Nice.
I've really been focusing on trying to get down in the floor with them and do stretches, and fitting in walking when I can. I haven't been as good about that since we moved, but we were really, really good about that before. And Gabriel's really into the airplane thing where he wants to hop on your legs and
Oh
fly
yeah.
through the air. So we do that. But the grace thing is super important because if I beat myself up, then I'm not going to do anything. So, just
Oh
like
yeah.
be really thankful when you can even squeeze 5 minutes in. And then, if you start with 5 minutes, if you have more time and you feel up to it and the kids allow it, then you do more.
Mhm.
Which doesn't happen every day, but
Yeah, it's
and it,
hard.
yeah.
Working parents, it's tough, right? It is a challenge, but it's important.
And in addition to that, like I always just try to be super aware of my water intake. Like I try to drink like between 60 and 80 ounces of water a day so that I know that I'm getting enough and I'm not just snacking because I'm thirsty.
Yeah.
And then watching my portions, trying to make sure that I'm getting a decent amount of protein with my meals. And I actually found a trick recently that said that if you start with your veggies, it slows the glucose spike. So if you
Yeah.
start with your broccoli or your spinach or your Brussels sprouts, you can still have your chicken, your fried chicken, your hamburger, whatever else you're eating, in moderation, of course, but that will help slow the glucose spike as opposed to starting with the chicken or the burger before your veggies. So I think that's
Yeah,
kind
it's
of cool.
interesting because of all the fiber, right? Fiber tends to swell in the gut. And so right along that, one of my favorite hacks for the holidays is to have, I carry an apple in my purse for a reason. I always have one at my desk. I have an apple every day. And, before a holiday meal, sometimes, or a big meal or a birthday meal, whatever, we do tend to, sometimes people will hold off because they're going to indulge. Caroline talked about that earlier. I know I'm going to have my favorite dessert or whatever it is. And fiber before a meal and a big glass of water can help make you feel fuller. So then you're eating for the nourishment and not because you're trying to fill yourself because you're already kind of full. I love that tip. And when you think about that, fiber is kind of like, I kind of think about, in terms of how food breaks down. Our carbohydrates are kind of like kindling on a fire, right? They burn real hot, real fast, and then they're gone. And your vegetables, because of all the fat, and even fruit sometimes gets a bad rap because of the sugar. And yes, it has fructose in it, it has a sugar in it, but it's also got a lot of fiber and water in it. It's not the same as the sugar that you get in a candy bar, right? So, fruit or vegetables can really help to create a little bit of feeling of satiety. And especially if you drink a glass of water, you're less likely to overindulge because you're already full. And protein is like the log, right? It takes a long time to burn protein into sugar. Uh, Everything we eat gets turned into sugar. The real question to ask ourselves is, how fast is this going to turn into sugar? Yeah. Great tips from a busy mom. What about you, Nancy? I think Nancy's got teenagers in her home. She's got older kids. But what are some of your favorite hacks for healthy living when you're crazy busy and on the go?
Yeah, which is every day, all day. Um, but yeah, so I think everybody's covered so much already. Like every time that somebody would talk, I was like, oh, they took mine, they took mine. But I would just reiterate, for me, it's portion control and eating things in moderation. You never want to not allow yourself to have a certain item or food, because what's going to happen is you're going to want it even more. And then when you have it, you're going to binge. So for me, it's just eating in moderation and just having, like, let's say, some ice cream. Instead of having a bowl of ice cream, just have, like, half a cup, which is what the serving size is for ice cream, in the package. Um, and what else was I gonna say? Serving size. Yeah, and I would say, for, since it's Halloween time, one thing that I started doing a few years ago is I used to buy, like, my favorite candy to, like, give out, right? And that's just looking for trouble, because you're gonna have leftovers, and since it is my favorite candy, so I stopped doing that. I started buying pretzels, which there's kids who
Oh,
like pretzels, some do not, but their parents will thank you, trust me. And I will, and that's less candy that I will eat. So that's one thing that I started doing, is to buying, like, the little snack size pretzels and handing those out.
mm,
This way I'm not tempted to eat the leftovers. I mean, if I eat the leftovers, okay, fine, they're pretzels. But that's one thing that I've learned, and it's worked pretty well so far.
I love that. It's kind of right along with Stephanie's tip. Stephanie, one of our other nurses who can't be in here, she said she has her kids play Switch Witch. I hadn't heard of this before. I thought it was really cool. You switch candy for a reward or a gift, like a toy or a book, for all their Halloween candy. Shut the back door. I wish I would have known that when I had a little one. He said this limits candy availability at home, and manage your diet by choosing smaller portions of fun size candy and eating a healthy meal, prioritizing protein and fiber, just like Lindsay said. Do this prior to indulging on treats. It can help prevent overeating. You can also hand out non-food treats like small toys. I was thinking, gosh, I got to go to the dollar store after I read her tips here. Um, Non-food treats, small toys. This can help decrease candy at home, which also helps eliminate temptation. Portion control, she says. Always eat in moderation, and remember that candy is around all year long. You don't have to eat it all right then. And I think that's what hits, some of our patients, where they're really having they're starting to get some momentum, and then Halloween comes around. It can really knock them off the wagon. Being restrictive creates overeating habits, is what she says. And it's interesting because I think sometimes, and Lindsay brought that up earlier, about giving herself some grace. And I think for all of us, from time to time, we set goals for ourselves, and when we don't meet them or we fall off the wagon, I think, like somebody else pointed out earlier, I think, Caroline, you talked about it. I already had one piece, might as well eat a whole bag, right? And then it's okay if you mess up. It's okay. That's why God made erasers on the end of pencils, right? So we can, if we fall off a wagon, we can get right back on and don't beat ourselves up too much. Life is hard enough, and we can recreate ourselves any day, every day. Every day we wake up, we can decide who we're going to be this day. If we didn't do so well yesterday, well, doggone it, today's a brand new day and we can get back on and try it again. And so I love that, giving yourself grace. And as a recap, what I heard was keep up your regular habits. And, especially for a holiday meal, like Clint and Steve talked about, exercise, super important. Before a holiday meal, it's not a day to skip a meal. One of my favorite tips, don't skip a meal. Make sure you eat healthy. That way you're not going to be ravenous by skipping, and make sure that you exercise. And you can exercise before, even going for a little walk after dinner. If you, after dinner, you get in the habit of grabbing your sweetheart by the hand and going for a walk around the block, they're going to think you're romantic, and you're like, hey, I'm just getting my steps in, knocking it off, right? Get some brownie points there. Really important. I know Kasha talked a lot about really honoring, her body, and she gives herself support. For those dealing with pain is a real thing that can restrict people from moving. And back issues are probably the back, hips, knees. They're like number one things that will keep people from working out or walking, doing the things that they want to do. One of my favorite tips for those kinds of days are Pilates. And if you haven't read Joseph Pilates' stories, very inspirational. He was actually a prisoner of war in Nazi Germany. And this is where Pilates came from. He didn't have any fancy equipment and didn't have a lot of room. And he was healthy and vibrant, while around him, his fellow prisoners were not. And actually, they had him train the guards, which I couldn't have done. I would have trained him, how do you make a rope? And no, I'm just joking. That's awful. That's a terrible thing. But this is where Pilates came from. So, I mean, you don't have to have a budget to work out. You just have to move. You don't have to have fancy equipment. You don't have to have a whole lot of space. All you have to do is move. And there's so many resources out there to help people develop a habit of movement. And as we talked about earlier, I think Lindsay talked about that, these little micro moments, even 5 or 10 minutes. Did you know 12 minutes is all you need to light your metabolism in such a way that it will burn for you all day? So, even setting a minimum limit, 5 or 10 minutes, I promise you, your body will thank you for moving. Jessica also talked about the portion control. Watching your plate sizes. Most dinner plates anymore are about 15 inches. They're like a trough. And what's recommended is a 9-inch dinner plate. It's more like a salad plate. And it looks really nice on a table when you have all the salad plates. It is helpful to watch our portions. And I think a lot of us on the call today, we talked about hydration, staying hydrated. We know dehydration can mask hunger because we're trying to get water in the body, and that's really important as well. All these tips that we shared are little bitty things. You might just pick one thing that you want to create a new habit around and work on that one thing. If you only worked on one thing every quarter, every 3 months, if you only worked on one new healthy habit, by the end of the year, you'd have 4 pillars. You would have 4 strong habits under your belt. And that's what drives you to where you're going to be in 5 years, in 10 years, are the habits. The things that we do without thinking about, those are the things that automatically take us where we end up. And so, gosh, thank you everybody for sharing your tips and your tricks. Happy Halloween to everybody. Does anybody have any last little tips or insights, anything that you wanted to mention? I think we covered the bases. Well, thank you, everybody. It was nice to see everyone. Happy Halloween. Ciao.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye. Thank you.
You guys.